Hi guys, it's Arnold again here with another video. Um, I didn't even think there was going to be another video, but I have to show my appreciation by giving out a shout out to the guys on the Roland FA 06, 07, and 08 Facebook group. Um, they have absolutely shown me love in me sharing my previous video, which is the first one, which I'll encourage you to check out. Um, and I have to be honest, I was absolutely blown away. The admin of the group, Neil Goins, shout out Neil, um, even pinned the post to the top, and I'm absolutely grateful for him. And yeah, so that has encouraged me to actually now turn that one video in a tutorial series to showcase how I use the FA and how I prepare my things, my sets in the FA for performance. Um, so this is dedicated to the guys in the group, and I hope you'll enjoy it. So I'm gonna be it's gonna be about one, two, three, four videos that I'm gonna be doing still. And in each of the videos, I'm gonna tackle a specific topic. In this one, I want to tackle how I've ultimately now decided to set up my studio set for church, um, and where I place the patches, what I've done to it in terms of effects, etc., in terms of compression, etc., etc., etc. So here we go. So what I've done now is I've actually taken that same set and I've renamed it. That's all I've done, and I've placed it in position one. The reason for that is I think this is going to be the studio set I'm going to be using every Sunday, all Sunday, and unless there's something specific that I need to address in terms of my sounds, this is going to be the set that I'll be using, right? So what I've done was I actually just went right, studio set, I renamed it, I put it in position one, and I selected, I renamed it, and I renamed it church. Right? I'm not going to do that now because I already did it. And then I deleted all my other studio sets. All my other studio sets I deleted. Now, for the guys that has experience with the FA, they will know that you can't actually delete individual studio sets. But I have a trick that I use. I go to an empty studio set. So I'll go there. Then I go right, studio set, and then enter. And then I'll actually place it on the studio set that I want to delete. Now, I'm not going to do that now because I'm actually working on something in terms of having my FA control Ableton. But this is, so you put it on the set that you want to delete, you select it, and then you just write it. That means you've actually now written an empty set, an original empty studio set over the one that you wanted to delete. So that's how you delete, right? So what I've now done was I've actually halfway worked on this one, on our test studio set, which I have now renamed Church. And I'll take you through what I've done so far, and I've actually now made this video because I want to take you through what I do next. But let me show you what I've done so far. So on channel 1, I still have my acoustic piano and my EP on channel 2. I've changed the guitar a bit, but there's still a guitar on channel 3, and then I have my favorite organ living in channel 4. Now, because sometimes I don't have a bassist, I will prepare for that in the studio set as well. So what I've done is I've done my piano again, but only on the top 2/3 of the keyboard, because some of the experienced guys now are already going, yeah, that's because he's going to put a bass at the bottom, and they're absolutely right. I'm going to put a bass at the bottom. So I've done the piano on the top 2/3. Exactly the same EP again, also on the top 2/3. Exactly the same. What am I doing? What am I doing here? Oh, I'm fiddling. Let me just see if I have that guitar right. There. favorite guitars also on the top 2/3. And then I have my favorite organ again. So it's the same 4 sounds that you have on channel 1 to 4 that I've put now on channels 5 to 8, but I only have it set up on the top 2/3. The reason for that is further down in my channels, you'll see that I'm going to put a bass there, right? Because I don't know if I'm always going to have a bassist, so I want to prepare for that. Channel 9 is not going to have anything in it. That sound living there is not going to mean anything. Then in channel 10, I'm actually going to put my favorite drum kit, right? Let me save that. And then from the previous video, I've moved my strings to channel 11. I've moved my emotion pad into channel 12 with exactly the same thing. That pad is on the bottom 2/3, and then I have my bow pad on the top 1/3 of the key bed, living in channel 13. And then I have my bass, right, only on the bottom section. Okay, it's mixed into all the other sounds, but you'll hear it clearly now when we set up the groups. Okay, so now I have all the sounds that I think I'll be using, right? So now I just want to set up my groups. I go to Pad Utility. I go to Group 1. I can see I've actually already done it. It's channel 1 that's on. Let me edit it. Channel 1 is on, plus 11, 12, and 13. Now 11 is my strings, 12 is my pad, and 13 is that bell pad. So these 4 groups is the first 4 sounds that I have, which I only want with 11, 12, and 13. No bass yet. No bass yet, right? So then I go to exit. Group 2 is exactly the same. There's actually a visual representation of what you have activated in that specific group. So group 2 is sound number 2, which is my EP, plus 11, 12, and 13. Group 3 is sound number 3, plus 11, 12, and 13. And group 4 is sound number 4, plus 11, 12, and 13. So that should sound like this. That's group 1. The pads volume. I know from experience that I actually like my pad around about 20 to 25, but I'm gonna stick it. Let me keep it on 20. The bell pad and that one I'm gonna keep like that. Okay. Let me see. Okay, now you can hear it. It's just piano, no bass, actually. Okay, group 2. With my strings, all of my groups has my strings. I have a Roland EV5, which I have plugged in, so I control the strings volume with my left foot on my Roland EV5. Okay, then I switch over to sound number 3. Seamless, no dropouts. Okay, and then my organ. That organ is way too loud. Let me drop that maybe to 80. Maybe even 70. Okay, so I like the organ at 70. Just save that. Okay, so now I've set up my main sounds. Group 1. Group 1. Okay, but now I want to set up a group that has the bass sound in, because I don't know if I'm always going to have a bassist. So I go Pad Utility. I'm going to select Group 5. I'm going to edit it. And then I'm going to activate with Group 5. I am going to activate 11, 12, 13, and 14. Why am I going to do that? Because 5 is where my piano lives. 11, 12, and 13 is where my usual sounds live. And I'm just adding 14 because that's where my bass live. Okay? So I exit. Then I go to group 6, edit. And I'm going to activate 11, 12, 13, 14. Exit. I'm going to go to group 7, edit. 7, 11, 12, 13, 14. Exit. Group 8, edit. 8 with 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay, exit. Let me just check if I have everything. So 1, 5 with 11, 12, 13, 14. 6, 11, 12, 13, 14. 7, 11, 12, 13, 14. And 8, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, that seems right. Let me exit. And save that. Let's see if I got this right. So on 5, ooh, sweet. Okay, so you get the idea. Okay, I'm actually now very excited. It's coming along nicely. Okay, so what I've done now is I have literally just put my sounds exactly in the channels that I want, in the order that I want. I've spread them across the keyboard the way that I want, right? So bottom third, top 1/3, etc., 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 with the bass only being on that section of the keyboard, etc., etc., etc. Right. The next thing that I like to do is just to check the levels. Now, when I say the levels, I'm talking about the volume levels of my main sound. The reason for that is, and especially on the in church, you want the transition from one patch to another, from one keyboard switch group to another to be seamless. I don't want to come from my acoustic piano and go into my electric piano, and then the electric piano is louder than what the acoustic piano was. So I normally just go back and check the levels. So I always start with having my acoustic piano at 100. Okay. I'm happy with that. And you can hear the bell on the top section. My fantasy bell and my pad. I could actually do with a little bit more volume on the pad. I think I'm going to bump that up to 25 and maybe the bell up to 23. Let me see. Yep, that's what I like. So I'm actually going to save that. Okay, so let me try my acoustic piano again. Okay. I hear that bell. And I hear that pad. Brilliant. But now my concern is my switch to the EP. I can actually do with a bit more on the EP. Let me go back to the piano. Let's give a bit more. Yep, I'm happy with that. Let me save that. And then my transition from, let's say, acoustic to my guitar. Oh, that seems right. I guess that one, right? Let me bring that back a bit. Yeah. think that's right. And then from my acoustic to the organ. I'm playing the same thing so that, and I do that purposefully so that I can gauge for myself across exactly the same progression that I'm playing in the keyboard, so that I don't confuse myself. That's actually right, but maybe I must bring it back a bit. Ah, perfect. Okay. So now what I do is, I obviously don't have to, for the next 4 sounds, do it again, because I can just remember it again. So it's 100, 92, 87, 67. 100, 92, 87, 67. Okay. You guys think that's gonna work? Let's start on group 5. Beautiful. The levels are perfectly with the bass. I do, however, think I'm going to bump up that bass a bit. I think to 105 maybe. Let me try that again. Let's start at 5. Sweet, absolutely sweet. Okay, so let me save that. So now I have mixed my levels. I'm happy with that, so I'm not going to bother with that. The next thing that I do is I like to go into EQ and to reverb, just placing my effects on each of the parts. Now, I did just now say that I like to go into EQ. However, I do not do that often. There must be something seriously wrong with the sound before I would touch any patches EQ at all. The reason I say that is because I believe that the Roland guys did a great job with bringing the best out of each of the individual sounds. I don't really fiddle with EQ. The only thing that I've done EQ on is on this piano that I've built myself. And the reason for that is I like the top frequencies to pop a bit. Right? So let's say the top 1/3. I like it to pop. But when I play towards the middle of the keyboard, it doesn't have to pop. It must just sit nicely. That's all. But when I go higher up in the keyboard, I want it to pop. Okay? So that's the only thing I put on that I fiddled with the EQ with, but that's only because that's my personal sound. I did that myself. Right. So the next thing I do is I go into each individual part's EQ, reverb. So I go to Shift, Effects, and I always do the plate reverb. There's your reverb. So if your cursor's there, you scroll over to the reverb, you press Enter. There's a couple of reverbs that you can choose from. I like number 5, the plate reverb. Listen, don't talk to me about any type of reverb. I like the plate reverb. That is just it. That's it. Okay. So I've selected the plate reverb. Now, that reverb is now going to be across all the sounds in my studio set. However, how much of that reverb you can specify individually, right? So at the moment on the keyboard, on the acoustic piano, that's 80, which I like. I think that's great EQ. I go to part 2, effects edit. I have 70 on my EP. Okay. Then I go to my piano, my guitar, that's also 70. I'm not going to go through all of them. And then the organ, effects edit, I have it on 80 as well. So 80, 80, 80. 80, 80, 70, 70, 80. 80, 70, 70, 80. Okay, so now I know part 5. Also 80. 70. 70. 80. That is just to keep the consistency across all the sounds, right? Exit. I save that, right? And then on the sounds at the bottom, like my strings, effects, I actually want some, I want some more. No, I need more. Let me try 70. Yeah, that sounds good. So on my strings, I dialed in 70. On my pad, I always go maximum. And the reason for that is the pad provides that ambient sound in the background. So I always go maximum on pad. I even go maximum on my bell pad. Because those sounds are for effect. It creates the atmosphere. It's much more ambientish, if I can put it that way. It creates the atmosphere for what I'm trying to create, especially in the worship segment, during the worship segment of the church service. I need much more reverb than that. Okay, and then on my bass, not much. Yeah, I'll just leave it at 20 because I need my bass to cut through. And so I'm not going to bother with that. Okay, I saved that. So that is my effects. The next thing I do is I go over to my drums. Okay, and what I normally do is I go to the drum machine and I pick up, let's say, any pattern I do, and then I mix all the individual parts. So what I do is I go to, or let me first do the effects on the drums as well. And you can see here, there's special compression and EQ on channel 10. That's what I'm talking about by keeping drums on channel 10. It's just better to have it on channel 10. I know some guys split it because they want the individual parts of the drums, etc., etc., etc. I don't do that. Okay, so what I then do is I go to Shift Tone Edit, and I edit each of the main parts of the drums. There we go. I first mix the levels because sometimes the snare or there's one sound that pops too much out of the whole drum mix. Like for example, the snare. I actually need a bit more snare. And how you do it is you just press the note that you want to edit, and then it changes there. So if I press the kick drum, then it'll change there. And then you can set the level, etc. But I am actually happy. I normally leave the hi-hat the open hi-hat, and the crash I actually come down a bit with. Okay, exit. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to save this now. Save that part. So what I do is I save it as favorite power session drums. You can see I've done this before, eh? Okay. So I am just gonna rename it. Let me do this. Insert, insert, insert. And I'm just gonna say favorite, because chances are I'm gonna use this drum set for everything. And the reason I do that is because you want that uniformity in church. If you played with a guy that plays the acoustic drums, he only has one drum set. He doesn't change his drum set from song to song. He plays with the same drum set for the whole service. So when I set up my drum machine, I use that same drum set I use across everything, right? Across everything that I'm going to do for that day. Okay? So now I'm happy with the drum levels. The other thing that I like doing as well is I like much more reverb on the snare. Oh, that's way too much. That's too much. That's too much. 70. Okay. The snare room, I'm then also going to do it 70 just to keep that uniformity. Okay. And then what I do is I detune the snare a little bit as well. But now I need more reverb. Take the rim back as well. But then I need more reverb. Okay, I'm happy with my drum kit. Fortunately, I have to save that again. Right. Okay. And then what I do is I save the whole studio set then again. Okay. So now I've mixed my drums. The one thing that I forgot about the drums is I also like to do different compression on the drums. So I go shift, is it effects edit? No. Tone edit. So I go to compression. It's standard set at 4:1. I like to put the drums on 8:1. I know some sound engineers is going to, frown on that. That's just what I like. It doesn't have to be what you do. So you do you, I do me. This is what I do. I like my compression set at 8:1 for my drums. So I exit again. I write. Let me just write that tone again. Right. Okay. And then I write the studio set again. Okay. Let's just see what that sounds like with the... I'm just going to pick any... Let me just pick one, the group 5 that has the bass in. Bring that drums then a bit up, so maybe to 70. No, 70 is too much. Let's make it 60. Group 5. I'm still in group 5 with the bass, acoustic piano with the bass. Okay. So now I save this. Okay. The final thing that I do is I do the compression across the whole studio set. And the reason I do that is because I would like for the studio set to nicely be glued together. Go on Shift, Effects Edit, and then you click on Reverb, but then you tab over to the Master Compression, right? And I like to do the Master Compression, the low band ratio 8:1, as you can see there. The mid band ratio also 8:1, and guess what? The high band ratio 4:1, because what? I need that highs to pop. That's just my personal preference. It sounds good to me. Again, it doesn't have to be what you do, but it's what I did. Okay. So now I've done the compression as well. And then I save. Now my studio set is finished. This is the studio set that I have now built for me to my liking. I've placed the sounds where I needed to be. I've mixed the levels of each of the main sounds, the volume level, so that when I transition from one to another, that one sound isn't too loud over the speakers and having the congregation look at you like something's wrong. So you mix the levels so that that transition is seamless. Then I go into effects. I don't go into EQing of individual sounds that much. The reason for that is I think the Roland guys did a phenomenal job. I only do the reverb, and I use the plate reverb, and I dial it in on each of the parts that I like. The next thing I do is I mix my drums. I mix the levels of my drums. I work a bit on the snare because for CCM type music, you detune the snare a little bit and you put much more reverb on it to give it that CCM feel. And then I dial in the compression 8:1, right? After I've done that on the drums, I do the whole studio set's compression, the master compression. I do the lows 8:1, the mids 8:1, and the highs 4:1. This is my studio set. I'm not going to use anything else, like I said, unless there is a specific song that needs a specific sound, etc., etc. I'm not going to bother with it. That is just how I use it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Oh, the other thing that I want to say is, so I have prepared now for everything, right? I'm prepared for if I have a bassist, I can just play in group 1 and then just use my drum machine. Okay, because I have a bassist. If I don't have a bassist, but I have a drummer, then I just play like this. I play the bass, let him play the drums, right? If it's just me alone, and I think that sounds absolutely brilliant. Okay. I don't want to give too much away because we are going to get into the next videos into the sequencer and building your own drum patterns, etc. And then I'll be performing and showing you how I actually use all of the things that we've talked about in a live situation. So this is how I prepare my studio set. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope that you could learn from it. See you in the next video. The next video we'll be talking about the sequencer and how I use the sequencer to prepare for whatever I need to prepare for. And I hope you guys actually look forward to that one, because I think that one is going to be a great one. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, please. You're not going to know if there's a new video that's going to pop up. So subscribe to the channel, and I hope that I could have helped you out. Okay, enjoy.